3 bone-chilling true tales of the devil's mark that haunt you forever. The clock struck midnight in the small town of Black Hollow, and the air crackled with a sinister energy. It was the kind of night where shadows danced under the pale moonlight, whispering secrets of ancient horrors that had long been buried. In the heart of this darkness lay an old, crumbling church, rumored to hold the mark of the devil himself, a mark that left a chilling imprint on the souls of those who dared to cross its threshold. As Sarah approached the church, her breath hitched. The rusted iron gate creaked as though protesting her presence. Wisps of fog curled around her ankles, and every step sent shivers racing down her spine. She remembered the locals' chilling warnings of the twisted shadows that slithered through the church at night, possessing the power to lure the unsuspecting into eternal torment. The final gruesome tale recounted how the flickering candlelight revealed faces anguished and contorted, trapped in a cycle of despair, of fate that no one could escape. But it wasn't just the church's cursed reputation that held Sarah captive. A half-torn diary, whispered about in hushed tones at the diner, detailed the last moments of Father Baxter, who was said to have succumbed to madness after discovering the unholy truth about the mark. His anguished words painted vivid images of a sinister entity watching from the shadows, waiting for his moment to strike. The diary had gone missing, leaving only rumors echoing through the town, rumors that curdled the blood of those who remembered. With each heartbeat pounding in her ears, Sarah decided to step inside the dim entrance. A chill swept through the air, wrapping around her like a cold embrace. The flicker of a dying candle illuminated grotesque carvings on the walls, faces twisted in agony, etched deep into the stone. The unsettling sensation crept over her. It felt as if the very walls had eyes, watching, judging, filling her with a paralyzing fear. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the empty room like thunder, making Sarah jump. It snapped the silence like a brittle twig. Heart racing, she spun around, every muscle tense. In that moment, a whisper floated on the air, barely audible but distinct, a malevolent invitation laced into the chilling breeze, beckoning her deeper into the dark unknown. What was it trying to say? What awaited her in this wretched abode of lost souls? The tension hung thick, pressing against her chest. Fragments of doubt twisted violently in her mind. She clutched at her throat, feeling the lump forming, a fear that was so palpable it could have suffocated her. This was just the beginning. What other horrors would this forsaken place unleash? The air grew heavier as Sarah cautiously stepped forward, the creak of the old floorboards seeming to echo her every thought. Shadows loomed larger, stretching out like ghostly fingers eager to take hold of her. A flicker of light danced in the corner of her eye, drawing her attention to an altar obscured by dust and cobwebs. What had once been a sacred space felt corrupted, as if something had clawed its way into the very foundation of this place. As she approached, the air thickened with an oppressive energy that tasted like fear, and a cold sweat broke on her brow. Decorating the altar were remnants of strange symbols and discarded objects, small trinkets, bones, and tattered pieces of fabric. Every object screamed of desperation, perhaps offerings for salvation or calls for revenge. But who or what was listening? The whisper swelled, morphing into a low growl, vibrating through the very stones of the church. It started as a hum, rising in intensity, drowning out the embedded echoes of the past. Sarah, the voice curled around her name like a caress and sent chills spiraling down her spine. There was no escaping it. She could feel the weight of the unseen entity pressing closer, its breath like ice against her skin. "Show yourself," she demanded, her voice trembling but laced with urgency. But the only answer was a cruel laugh that reverberated through the hollowed space, sending waves of terror coursing through her. Heart hammering, she took a step back, but the ground beneath her shifted, as if the very earth sought to pull her into its depths. Suddenly, the shadows thickened, swirling around her like a storm converging. Desperate to break free from the tightening grip of dread, Sarah turned to flee. As she bolted for the entrance, she felt the air whip behind her, almost as if something was latching onto her very soul, trying to drag her back into eternal darkness. With every ounce of strength, she charged forward, nails scraping against the wooden door frame as she burst through into the cold night air outside. Panting, lungs burning, Sarah stumbled onto the grass, looking back at the church that now loomed, ominous and silent. The whispers were gone, leaving only the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. Yet, a chill gripped her heart. Had she truly escaped, or was the worst yet to come? Just as she collected herself, the sensation of being watched crept back, in this time, not from the church, but from the shadows around her. Tension prickled at her skin. She felt it, a presence lurking just beyond her peripheral vision. A glance over her shoulder revealed nothing, but deep down, the gut instinct clawed at her. Something was out there, waiting. As she turned back to the church, a flicker of light in the highest window caught her attention. There it was again, the unmistakable glow of a candle. Without a second thought, it flickered out of existence, swallowed by the haze of night. In that brief moment, she had seen it. Had someone or something been watching her from the dark? With each step retreating from that cursed place, she was acutely aware that the night was far from over. The Devil's Mark was not merely a story, it was real, and it was calling to her. But what she didn't know was how deep that connection truly ran, and what it would demand from her next. As Sarah felt the blood drain from her face, she realized she had a decision to make: turn away and run, or return to the darkness that sought her. Whatever awaited her choice, the fate of Black Hollow might depend on it. What would she do next? Sarah's heart raced as she stood frozen, torn between her instinct to flee and an insatiable curiosity that tugged at her. The town of Black Hollow had been her life, and she had always dismissed the tales as nothing but myths whispered among the old and superstitious. But now, she could feel the pull of the church like a siren's call resonating deep within her bones. Fingers trembling, she gripped her phone, its flashlight a feeble barrier against the encroaching darkness. Each step back toward the church felt heavier, as if the ground itself conspired to keep her from crossing back into the unknown. She hesitated, battling the urge to spiral back to safety, but the flickering candle from the window echoed in her mind. Who or what had been watching her? The whisper of the wind slipped through the trees, rustling like an old tale unfolding. "You were meant to find me." The voice she thought had vanished suddenly returned. It washed over her, taunting and inviting, emboldening her with every syllable. Steeling herself, Sarah took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and began to walk again, each step fueled by a potent mix of fear and determination. As she reached the heavy wooden door, she nearly caved, a deep sense of foreboding wrapped around her like a shroud, but her hand had a mind of its own, pushing the door open with a creak that shuddered through her body. Darkness enveloped her as she stepped back inside, feeling the ancient air seep into her soul. The shadows felt alive, shifting and curling around the corners of her vision. "Show yourself!" she shouted into the void, her voice emboldened by desperation. Silence answered her, thick and suffocating. Taking a cautious step inside, her flashlight beam cut through the dense darkness, revealing remnants of the weird relics. Dust danced in the light, swirling in patterns that almost seemed intentional. Her heart raced with each pulse of sound echoing through the stone's thuds, whispers, and the low hum of something unseen. Suddenly, a sharp crack of wood splintering sent her jumping back. The sound had come from the altar. Her eyes darted to the broken pieces of furniture littered about. What had broken? What had moved? Barely aware of her trembling hands, she stepped closer, trying to see what lay beneath the debris. And then she saw it, a small, weathered book partially concealed under a tattered cloth. The symbols etched onto its cover sent a chill deep within her bones. This wasn't just any book, it was bound in an off-color leather marked with the same signs that adorned the altar. Before she could reach for it, the book jerked violently as if alive. It let out a low, eerie growl, sending a jolt through her. A shadow separated from the darkness behind her and collided against the church walls, rushing toward her with a speed that stole her breath. Instinct kicked in. She felt the adrenaline surge through her, propelling her into a nearby corner. "Please, just leave me alone," she cried out, her voice cracking. But it was too late. The figure emerged from the dark, a ghastly silhouette with glowing eyes that pierced the night. In that moment, Sarah understood whatever this was, it had been waiting for her. And it wasn't just her fate hanging in the balance, it was Black Hollow's, tied tightly to this very moment. As she reconsidered her escape, the shadows flickered with anticipation. What would she choose? Fight or flight? The next choice could determine the salvation or damnation of many. As she grasped the book tightly, a voice rose above the chaos, echoing in her mind, "You cannot resist your calling." And at that instant, Sarah knew the truth. The darkness had begun to draw her, and what awaited her on the other side would change everything. Would she uncover the secret or become engulfed by it? The chilling gaze of the glowing eyes bore into Sarah, a pull like ancient gravity demanding her attention. They shimmered with a malevolence that sunk deep into her spirit, making every hair on her body stand on end. She was trapped in that corner, heart hammering against her ribcage as the shadows writhed, hungry and eager. "Sarah," the voice, layered with 1,000 lost souls, echoed around her. It felt like a sharp wind cutting through the church, filling the empty space with dread. "You must understand." She clenched the book tight against her chest, fingers trembling as she willed herself to process the situation. Thoughts raced through her mind, a storm of confusion, fear, and the faintest flicker of hope. Could this be the key to the strange happenings in Black Hollow? Or was it a trap laid out just for her? With a sudden surge of bravery, she met the figure's gaze. "What do you want with me?" Her voice rang defiantly, cutting through the immensity of their dark encounter. The apparition lunged closer, and for a split second, she could discern its features: hollow cheeks, a twisted grin, and that unyielding glow, suffused with a haunting sorrow. "We are bound by this place. Centuries of pain, suffering, and secrets. You may be our only salvation." Salvation? The word sounded alien coming from her lips as doubt crept in. What could she possibly do against the weight of history? "How can I help?" The figure gestured towards the book, which now seemed alive with energy, vibrating against her hands, whispering secrets only she could hear. "The veil lies thin. The book reveals truths. Accept it, and you can uncover what was hidden." Sarah's heart raced between the shadows and the light. The book offered answers, but the dark figure loomed over her with an intensity that screamed danger. What if this was a deception? Suddenly, the air shifted. Her phone flickered as the flashlight struggled against the encroaching darkness. Shadows curled and twisted around her limbs, restricting her movement. It felt like a warning, reminding her the darkness wasn't done. This was just the beginning. With a surge of determination, she took a step toward the altar, closer to the book. "If I accept, I need to know what's at stake." She fired back, voice trembling but edged with defiance. The figure's sinister grin widened, revealing elongated teeth. "What's at stake, child, is far beyond your comprehension. The price has always been the same: your soul for salvation." A chill rushed down her spine. The weight of the church pressed down upon her, thick and impenetrable. It wrapped her in a web of ancient fears. What evil lurked within those pages? What had happened the last time someone delved into those secrets? As if sensing her turmoil, the shadows pulsed, whispering around her like an angry sea. "Join us, Sarah. Learn, release, or be consumed." Shaking, she clawed her way to her senses. This wasn't just about her. She could feel the town's history whispering through the warped wood of the church, begging her to uncover whatever lay hidden. The question nagged at the back of her mind: what if she was the key to change everything? The figure's eyes bore down, glinting with an ethereal light as it persisted: "Choose your fate. Choose the book, or choose the end." The room seemed to close in on her as the shadows beckoned and the book thumped in her hands. Her heart thudded. Could she decipher the truth lodged in the fearsome stories woven through the town's fabric? Could she truly brave the depths of darkness to uncover the light, just as she felt ready to succumb to the pull of her destiny, the church groaned a deep, bone-chilling rattle as if the very walls were warning her. Resist and all hope is lost. The echo faded, leaving behind an eerie silence that hung thick. Without another thought, she flipped the book open, shrouded in uncertainty, but the need to know was overpowering. And then she saw it, words glowing from the pages like embers, igniting a fire within her that threatened to propel her forward. What she read next would change everything. Would she be ready for the revelation waiting just beneath the surface? Or had she awakened something far more malevolent than she had bargained for? The words on the pages flared to life, pulsing with a rhythmic intensity that mirrored Sarah's racing heart. Each inscription radiated whispers of the past, dark history entwined with raw emotion. Whoever stirs the veil stirs the shadows, one line read, and the chilling realization hit her like ice water. Her very presence here had triggered something. Do you feel it? The apparition's voice caressed her ears, a sinister lullaby weaving through the air. It circled her, the shadows at its command. Can you sense the pulse of those who came before, their screams, their solace, their eternal seeking? Sarah swallowed hard, shaking her head slightly. What had she gotten into? The book throbbed like a heartbeat, urging her on, and the cravings of curiosity and dread crashed into one another. Read! It hissed, pushing her closer to the words that danced before her eyes like moths to a flame. Only by knowing can you truly decide. Taking a deep breath, she leaned closer, the text drawing her in. The first tale began to entwine itself around her thoughts like a fog. It spoke of a woman, Isabel, wrongfully accused of witchcraft, her screams echoing beneath the earth as she was buried alive. The darkness took hold of her, transforming grief into rage, her essence intertwining with the very foundations of the town. Isabel's story sang of vengeance, a promise to be realized through the centuries, lurking just beneath the surface. Forgive us, a phantom whisper slithered through her mind. Deliver her. Pain shot through Sarah's chest. Isabel's anguish seeped into her soul, clawing for release. Was this the redemption the spirit sought? The second tale, brother against brother, an unholy decision made in the name of love, the figure urged, its presence tightening around her. Their choices changed the fabric of this town. She could read the tension in the air as the words morphed into the next tragedy. It painted a grim picture of two siblings, torn apart by jealousy and despair, their spirits eternally tethered to the grounds beneath the church. The siblings' blood had fused with the earth, deepening the town's sorrow. Can you hear their cries? The figure pressed, shadows swirling violently, like a storm trapped in a bottle. You must liberate them. A lump formed in Sarah's throat. They were bound by pain, yet she felt the pull to help them. But in doing so, would she also bind herself to their tormented fates? As if sensing her inner turmoil, the shadows grew agitated around her, looming larger. Finally, the third tale, a promise of love that crossed into the abyss, it whispered, voice thick with longing. Clara slipped into darkness, lost in her search for him. Would you dare to unlock her truth? The weight of the decisions before her pressed down. Each story resonated in her bones, pulling her deeper into a vortex of desperation and longing. If she uncovered their secrets, perhaps she could satiate the angry shadows clamoring for redemption. But there'd be a cost. Secrets demanded sacrifices, and she wasn't sure if she was willing to pay. As the church's walls echoed with a sudden crack, she gasped. Sarah, the time is now. The figure loomed closer, its breath hot against her skin. Their stories cannot remain trapped. The veil is thin. You can unlock it. With burning conviction, yet dizzying fear, she steadied herself. What if I can't handle it? She shouted, the shadowy figures flickering in response. Fear will bind you more than the darkness. Choose, or perish. Gripped by panic, she felt the book pull harder, illuminating the dark corners of her hesitations. What awaited her in the pursuit of truth? The room felt like a cage, hot with every living spirit captured within. With resolve coursing through her veins, she grasped the book tighter, eyes locked on the glowing words. Would she endure the trials these tales of the damned would unleash? As the shadows surged forward, she knew she stood at a precipice. Would she plunge into the churning depths of the stories, or turn back and face the consuming darkness? There was no going back now. But one question echoed louder than the rest: what darkness would rise against her? The book pulsed in her hands, a living conduit connecting Sarah to the tortured souls bound within its pages. Let the truth spill forth, the apparition urged, its swirling form resonating with hunger. Start with Isabel. She hesitated, dread gnawing at her insides. What if powerful forces stirred with her every decision? But the shadows kept shifting, twisting into shapes of desperate souls seeking release. Okay, Sarah barely whispered, her throat dry, fingers trembling. She swallowed hard and leaned closer, the words illuminating her face with a warm glow, beckoning her to unravel their dark fabric. The ink shimmered and flowed, morphing into scenes from Isabel's past. She saw her young and vibrant standing in the town square, laughter bubbling from her lips. But joy turned to horror as vicious fingers pointed at her, accusations flying through the air like stones. Witch! They cried, eyes wild with ignorance and fear. A cold chill washed over Sarah, nails digging into her palms. She felt Isabel's dread, the suffocating fear as the villagers dragged her away, their anger ringing in her ears like a death knell. Isabel's spirit, desperate and furious, reached out across the centuries, clawing at Sarah's heart. They betrayed me. The spectre howled, shadows coiling fiercely around her. You must bring them justice. Sarah's heart raced. This was more than just a story, it was a sinister call to arms, echoing through the ages. But how could she possibly do that? The book's energy pulsed against her skin, urging her on. Forgive them? She ventured, more to herself than anyone else. A laugh echoed, hollow and chilling. Forgive? No. I do not seek forgiveness, I seek vengeance. The desperation in Isabel's voice sank deep into her bones, the pain palpable. But vengeance? What would that require of me? Sarah whispered, her courage wavering in the face of ancient wrath. Dare to taste the darkness you fear or watch the shadows consume your world. The apparition's voice trembled, the shadows around them thickening, darkening until they seemed alive, crawling towards Sarah like a suffocating fog. What about the brothers? Sarah suddenly remembered, recoiling from Isabel's intensity. What must I do to help them? Only by revealing their choices can you set them free, the figure hissed. Their bond, their blood, is the key. She saw the flickering images the brothers caught in a hateful embrace, betrayal etched into their faces. She gasped as more shadowy forms materialized, twisting around her, suffocating her senses. No! She shouted, overwhelmed by their pain. If I open that wound, I might never heal. Would you rather remain a prisoner of their grief? The apparition challenged, pushing closer, its breath like a winter's chill. Decide now. Gritting her teeth, Sarah felt the icy grip of uncertainty wrap around her throat. Maybe she could discover the brothers' secret, the betrayal that twisted their fate. She raised her chin, determination igniting within her chest. Fine. I'll discover the truth. She exclaimed, gripping the book tighter. The words glowed brighter, searing into her mind, peeling back the layers of pain that enveloped the brothers' tale. The air crackled as the vision unfolded. One brother, consumed with jealousy, struck down the other in a moment of blind rage. Blood that flowed mingled with sorrow, forever binding them in a torment woven from love and betrayal. I see it. Sarah cried out, her chest tightening. Anguish swept over her, the realization crashing like waves over jagged rocks. This is so much more than I expected. As if in response, the shadows writhed, pulsating with unrest. And the last tale waits, the apparition urged, its voice low and sinister. Unlock Clara's fate, or face the consequences. Sarah's heart thumped in her ears. She had ignited an ancient conflict, and now darkness awaited her every choice. Could she truly go through with it all? Could she bear the weight of these spirits on her soul? The tension grew unbearable. Clara's fate beckoned, a promise mixed with dread. What price would Sarah pay to unveil it? But as the shadows closed in, one thought pierced through the chaos: could uncovering these stories save her own soul or doom them all? The book's glow intensified, illuminating the shadows and vibrating with a foreboding energy. It felt alive. Sarah's fingers danced nervously over the pages, nearly burning as she anticipated the turmoil ahead. Clara's tale lurked within, an impending storm that made the air heavy with dread. Clara, she murmured, tasting the name like ashes. Her heart raced, not from excitement, but fear. What more had Isabel and the brothers endured? What dark depths lay buried beneath Clara's name? Dive deeper, the apparition beckoned, its voice dripping with urgency. You must uncover the truth or suffer their fates. With a shaky breath, Sarah focused on the ink, willing it to reveal the next haunting narrative. The shadows cast twisted shapes across the walls, pulsating with an energy that felt both sinister and beautiful. Like a moth drawn to flame, words began to swirl, pooling into images that ripped through her mind. Clara appeared as a young girl, frolicking in a sunlit meadow, laughter echoing through the air. But that laughter quickly shattered. Dark clouds loomed, a shadow creeping over her innocence. Sarah felt the shift, a cold breath against her cheek as Clara transformed from carefree to terrified. No. What is happening? Sarah gasped, clutching the book as panic gripped her throat. The scenery morphed violently, darkening with echoes of whispered secrets and betrayal. Clara's world twisted downward, revealing a tangled web of deceit. See what they did. Isabel's voice clawed at Sarah's heart. They cursed her. Suddenly, Clara stood before a gathering crowd, her face pale and pleading. The villagers, once well-intentioned, now wore masks of suspicion. They pointed, their whispers curling into the air like smoke. Words soaked in hatred spilled forth: witch. Abomination. No. Sarah cried out, a lump forming in her throat. The sight twisted her stomach into knots. They can't do this. Not again. But the apparition drew closer, its swirling form relentless. Yes, it's always been this way. Betrayal echoed through generations, and Clara was caught in their wrath. The poignant weight of Clara's agony crashed against Sarah. She could feel the girl's heartbreak, the suffocating sensation of betrayal, despair pouring over her like an unrelenting storm. What did they want from you, Clara? Sarah pleaded, hoping for clarity, an escape from this nightmare. Not what they wanted from her, Isabel chimed in, urgent and sharp. But what they feared. They feared her power. The power you must embrace. A cry erupted from Clara, the sound slicing through the thick air. Please, help me. The desperation resonated deep within Sarah's bones. As the vision vanished, riddled with uncertainty, a new scene flickered to life. A sinister figure loomed over Clara, cloaked in darkness, a man who bore resentment like a shroud. You're a curse, a blight on our lives, he sneered, eyes cold and calculating. The dread weighed so heavy, it felt like a vice wrapping around Sarah's chest. Who is he? She gasped, fingers trembling as the shadows closed in tighter, threatening to suffocate her. He was her protector turned betrayer, the apparition hissed, darkly illuminating the connection. And if you fail to resolve this, his destiny will intertwine with hers. Both will fall into darkness forever. No. Sarah shouted, jolting awake from the trance. Horror washed over her like icy rain. I can't let that happen. But what do I have to do? Embrace the darkness within, unravel the secrets, face the fears. Only then can the cycle break. The shadows pulsed, growing stronger, a terrifying reminder of the stakes at play. The weight of countless souls pressed down, demanding justice, revenge, and release. Fear coiled in her stomach as realization dawned. Could she truly allow herself to become part of this? What if uncovering Clara's truth bound her deeper into the very darkness she feared, as the shadows shifted again, the apparition's voice dripped with urgency. "Time is running out, Sarah. You must make the choice. Will you step into the storm, or recommit to your fragile safety?" The question loomed, ominous and heavy. What choice could she make when the cost could be her very soul? And in that moment, the shadows thickened, a whisper of doom brushing against her ear. "The clock strikes anew. Will you face the darkness, or stay a prisoner of your own ignorance?" Sarah's heart hammered in her chest as the shadows writhed around her, each pulse of darkness resonating with the weight of history and despair. The weight of Clara's story pressed deeper, a living entity clawing at her insides. She felt caught between desire and dread. She wanted answers yet feared where those answers might lead. "Embrace the darkness." The words spiraled in her mind like a blizzard, cold and disorienting. What darkness was lurking inside her? Was it the same darkness that had consumed Clara? Swallowing the lump in her throat, Sarah turned her attention back to the book. "What must I do?" she whispered, the trembling words feeling futile in the clutches of the malevolent atmosphere. The shadows flickered and danced as if alive with anticipation, urging her to delve deeper. At her command, the pages trembled and then erupted in a whirlwind, sending her flying into a new vision. She found herself in the heart of a darkened village where whispers coiled like serpents, lacing the air with paranoia. The same cloaked figure shadowed her peripheral vision, his presence heavy and ominous. Sarah watched as a gathering crowd swelled beneath a crescent moon, their faces a mix of intrigue and malice. Clara's terrified expression returned, hauntingly familiar. But now she was shackled, her hands bound, pleading desperately for salvation. "I didn't do anything wrong," Clara cried, her voice raw and frantic, echoing into the night. "Why won't you listen? If she speaks, we'll be cursed." A man shouted, voice cracking, fear tightening around him. "Burn the witch!" The mob surged forward, carrying torches that illuminated their frenzied faces, twisted with collective rage. Sarah felt the weight of the crowd's judgment bearing down on her, like a cold vice that constricted her breath. "No!" Sarah's shout tore from her throat like a scream in the dark. She couldn't just watch this unfold. She had to act. "I won't let this happen again." In that moment, the world plunged into silence, the crowd frozen in mid-scream as if caught in a photograph. The energy crackled ominously around her, tugging at her spirit. "Speak your truth." Isabel's voice resonated again, powerful, almost beckoning. "Only with your voice can you free her." Heart pounding with fierce urgency, Sarah stepped forward. "Clara," she called out, the sound echoing both a plea and a rallying cry. "You are not alone. Your story matters." As if ignited by her words, Clara's eyes met hers, a flicker of hope emerging through the despair. "Sarah, help me. Please, it wasn't my fault." The apparitions flickered uncertainly, and a low growl reverberated through the shadows in angry warning. The man in the cloak twisted, angry eyes piercing into Sarah, and an icy chill wrapped around her heart. "You dare to intervene?" he hissed, malice dripping from his voice like poison. "Yes." Sarah shouted defiantly, determination sparking within her. "Clara deserves to be heard." The villagers shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other, their fury wavering. With each heartbeat echoing in her ears, Sarah felt the tide turning, old chains of oppression rattling against the jagged rocks of courage. "Clara, you are not a witch." More voices joined Sarah's, filtering from the crowd, fear replaced by embers of understanding. "You're a victim of their darkness." With a sudden crack that reverberated through the air, the shadows whirled violently, pulling Sarah back as if trying to erase her presence. The cloaked figure leaped forward, eyes blazing like hot coals. "You will regret this choice." "Then let me regret it," she cried, feeling the power of Clara's story surge through her veins, a fierce flame igniting in her core. "Let us rewrite the ending." The vision shattered, exploding into countless fragments, each shimmering with Clara's unrelenting spirit, her cries echoing in the darkness. But just as quickly as they appeared, the fragments began to fade. Sarah's breath hitched, the shadows coiled tightly around her again, a sinister grip that whispered of consequences yet to come. Time is slipping away, the apparition warned. Crystalline and resolute, the darkness thickening as if preparing to strike. It will not be long before the souls of the damned seep into your own. Find the key, unlock the chains, or be forever bound in their torment. The weight of it all settled heavily on Sarah's shoulders. The enormity of her choice was suffocating. Will your voice be strong enough to break the chains of Clara and the others? The shadows slithered ominously closer, a taste of the consequence that loomed ever near. Could she truly rewrite the stories buried in pain and betrayal? Or would she seal her fate, and Clara's, in darkness once again? What awaited her if she embraced the power within? The answers beckoned, calling her into the chilling unknown. The air was heavy with a suffocating silence, an almost tangible curtain shielding Sarah from the chaos that moments ago had enveloped her. She stood in limbo, the taste of fear bitter on her tongue as the shadows wavered, threatening to consume her whole. The words of the apparition echoed in her mind like thunder, relentless and unforgiving. Find the key, unlock the chains. Where was the key? The darkness pressed around her like a thick fog, and every instinct screamed for her to flee. But Clara's desperate eyes haunted her thoughts, piercing the veil of fear with shards of unyielding hope. You are not alone, Sarah had said, but now she felt entirely isolated in this tumultuous void. Breathe, she told herself, inhaling deeply. The air felt electric, crackling with the power of countless souls tethered to their grief. A fateful thought flickered into her mind. What if the key lay not in a physical object, but in the very stories that echoed through the village, intertwined with Clara's pain? What if the true key is their truth? As if in response to her moment of clarity, the shadows pulled back, reluctantly liberating a small fragment of light that pushed through the gloom. Sarah squinted, straining to focus on what lay ahead. Each heartbeat thudded in her ears, a metronome of urgency bolstering her resolve. Suddenly, the book in her hands pulsed, resonating with a longing of its own. She felt its energy calling her, guiding her toward the truth waiting to be uncovered. Show me, she murmured, gripping it tightly, willing it to take her deeper into the essence of Clara's story. The world spun again, blurring into motion before settling into a vibrant scene that pulsated with vivid colors. Sarah found herself standing in front of an old, decrepit house swallowed by wild roses, their thorns sharp and fierce against the delicate petals. Through the cracked window, she could see shadows flitting about inside, the flicker of candlelight illuminating jagged outlines of family gathered solemnly. In an instant, Sarah was there, surrounded by their resonance. They were bound by fear, woven together through whispered secrets and unspoken accusations. Clara's voice emerged gently at first, a remembrance carried on the breath of a restless wind. I remember the whispers, the forest listened, it always has. Clara. Sarah shouted, the words spilling forth with an urgency she could no longer contain. Tell me everything. But Clara's face darkened, her eyes clouded with the weight of despair. I can't. They hear you. Our stories aren't just echoes, they're traps that can ensnare. A chill swept through the gathered family, their expressions flickering between anger and sadness, eyes darting toward the door as if expecting a hostile entry. Panic tightened in Sarah's chest. They need to hear it. Your truth. But as she stepped forward, the air shifted dramatically, the shadows twisted, revealing the cloaked figure standing by the doorframe, his presence enormous and predatory. You think you're a savior? He taunted, his voice resonating throughout the room. These stories exist to bind souls, not to free them. No. Sarah screamed, urgency coursing through every fiber of her being. The only thing that binds them is silence. We must break it. The weight of his gaze bore down on her, the air quaking with palpable tension. You risk everything, he warned, his words heavy with menace. Unravel the threads of these tales, and you will unleash the very darkness you dread. With a defiant fire igniting within her, Sarah faced him. Then let it come. I will release them. Suddenly, the walls around her shuddered, and the family's echoes morphed into a cacophony of cries. Their collective torment spiraled around her, the shadows thickening in pulse with their despair. "Find the key," echoed Clara's voice amidst the chaos, yet now shadowed with uncertainty. "But beware the cost," the figure sneered, darkness swirling at his feet like a living entity, hungry for despair. "You stand on the precipice of ruin, Sarah. What will you sacrifice to wield this truth?" In that moment, she understood. The cost wasn't just Clara's pain, it was her own soul hanging in the balance, teetering on the edge of darkness. Would she plunge in, bravery illuminating her path, or draw back, leaving Clara and the others to the shadows? The decision loomed like a thunderstorm ready to break. As the shadows surged closer, she could feel the pieces of her resolve splintering. "I choose," she whispered, her heart racing, ready to confront the swirling darkness. But what would her choice reveal? With that choice echoing in her mind, the shadows closed in with relentless fury. Would she emerge a hero, or would she open the floodgates of retribution that the hidden stories wished to unleash? The chilling uncertainty etched into the very fabric of her being, a whisper of fate stirred through the darkness waiting for Sarah to claim her destiny. Sarah stood trembling, the shadows entwining around her more tightly than ever. Heart pounding in her chest, she felt as if every ghost of Black Hollow lurked just beyond her periphery, ready to pounce. The weight of their stories bore down on her, a crushing pressure that mirrored the panic swirling in her gut. This was it. The moment her fate teetered on the edge of unknown darkness. "What will you sacrifice to wield this truth?" The cloaked figure loomed, a sinister grin stretching across its face like a mask of despair. "I'll sacrifice anything if it means freeing you," she breathed, not fully comprehending the real magnitude of her vow. But as the words tumbled out, an electric pulse ignited in the air, a tremor of energy ready to be released. "Then brace yourself." Clara's spirit flickered around her like candlelight, desperate hope illuminating her tormented features which now seemed closer than ever. "The truth must unfurl like a rose, beautiful but with thorns. Are you ready?" "I am," Sarah declared, firming her grip on the book as she drew in a deep breath. The murmurs of past souls coalesced around her, building into a haunting surge of whispers as she opened the pages once more. The ink writhed, shimmering live, and with each word she spoke, as if resurrecting the buried sorrows, the very atmosphere shifted. "Isabel, I give voice to your pain. You were a victim of ignorance, innocent in your cries." The shadows hissed and twisted, writhing like vipers agitated by the light of revelation. Yet in the murk, Sarah felt Clara's pain surge and intertwine with the echoes of Isabel's, a flicker of alliance brimming with rage, twisted yet poised for release. "Forgive them," Isabel cried back, her voice laced with desperation. "That is all I sought, my name redeemed. Redemption comes through reckoning." Sarah shouted, words rolling from her lips with a fervor she never knew burned inside. The shadows quaked, twisting and contorting. Walls trembled as echoes of Isabel's anger clawed their way to the surface. The truth uncaged stood boldly, a nexus of rage and sorrow that had long pressed against the edges of Black Hollow. The apparition snarled, shadows pooling thicker, a tangible manifestation of dread. "You think you can rewrite history?" It boomed, but Sarah could feel the fear beneath the bravado, a crack in its façade. "Yes," Sarah thundered. "I can and I will. You cannot suffocate our stories anymore." With renewed courage, she turned back to the book, the script blurring, morphing into a vivid depiction of the siblings, consumed by jealousy and festering betrayal. "You the brothers. Your story is rife with regret. Expose your treachery." Once again, the shadows roared in disapproval, but Sarah pressed on, feeling the pulse of their truth slamming against her heart with each word she uttered. And as she spoke, the weight of her resolve echoed back. Their bond began to unravel, stories entwined but now loosening like threads coming undone. "Feel your guilt, brothers. Now is the time. Forgive each other." The shadows advanced, ire swirling thick in the air, but she felt a breakthrough, an opportunity to unlock the chains that bound them. For the first time, the specters began to wail, the sound rising to a crescendo as if the very earth shook with their grievance, a symphony of anguish that resonated throughout the church as pictures formed and dissolved. In the eye of the turmoil, the brothers faced each other, fury dissipating into sorrow. "Forgive," one of them echoed, and it spread through the air like wildfire, igniting the past now set to blaze with deliverance. "Let go of the past." Clara joined, her ethereal presence urging every scattered soul toward the promise of tranquility. "Release your chains." With each spoken truth, the shadows fought back, but their force dimmed ever so slightly, gnashing disappointment mixed with despair. Sarah could feel every spirit wrapped around her urging her forward, forging a bond between the darker echoes and vivid flickers of light, illuminating those histories that had long been mired in grief. "Clara!" Sarah shouted, hunger to unravel the truths invigorating her voice. "Your truth must emerge." The shadows hissed louder now, the energy pulsating, but she felt the weight shifting. It was within reach. "Please," Clara begged, voice raw and powerful. "Do not let my end define my story. Speak my truth." "Clara is not a witch," Sarah declared fiercely. "She is not the villain of this story. She sought love. The truth is she loved deeply, unconditionally. They twisted it into chains of fear." The shadows howled as the darkness strained against her conviction. She felt her own core beginning to fracture, yet the wings of hope lifted her spirit high as a blast of warmth washed over her, supercharging her resolve. "Let the tales spill, let them all spill," she cried, voice tearing through the entrenched despair surrounding the darkness. The power of love, shame, anguish all etched into black hollow. Today, it finishes. You are no longer bound to them. As her words filled the air, they erupted in brilliant bursts, a galaxy of souls reclaiming their space as shadows continued to shrink, swirling into submission. The ghosts began to restore themselves, faces emerging, layered with hope, a kaleidoscope of stunning life reclaiming its clemency. "Together through understanding," Sarah shouted, arms spread wide, embracing the light. "Let us cross over stories lived and felt, truths shared, your pain no longer weaponized. You shall be free." And there it was, the moment of liberation, as every ghost began to coalesce into a bright, harmonious glow, a wave of warmth cascading through the church as the darkness dissolved into shimmering gold. A chorus of laughter and joy rang through the hollowed space, laughter that swallowed the screams joy released into the air, healing the wounds buried deep within the town's heart. Then silence fell, a soft blanket that wrapped around Sarah, pulling her close. The shadows, once menacing figures, melted away into the night, their grip finally released. "Thank you," Clara whispered, ethereal light now filled with unrestrained joy. "You freed us. You chose love over fear." But as the spirits twinkled away, Sarah caught a trace, a lingering essence still beckoning her, the weight of another responsibility yet to embrace. A single thought pulsed through her mind as she emerged into the fresh air outside the church, empowered. Her actions had ignited hope for Black Hollow, but now she had to ensure that darkness would never rise again. Looking back at the old church, feeling the threads of all the lives intertwined and the energy pulsing still, she knew it was time to share the truth. She would unearth its secrets, lest the past repeat itself, ensuring the cycle of despair ended with her. As the first rays of dawn pierced the veil of night, illuminating the horizon, Sarah clutched the book tightly. Her time was now. Empowered and no longer alone, she would become the bearer of light for all those lost to darkness. Her journey was just beginning, woven from the tales of the past and illuminated by the strength of hope. This town would remember, and she would ensure it would never forget. So this is it, folks. This is your moment to step in and join us. Hit that subscribe button now and don't miss the next exclusive adventures that await. You need to subscribe. Stand with us as we discover more chilling truths together. Smash that like button now to fuel our journey through these dark narratives. Every click makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories on Sarah's moment of reckoning. What do you think will unfold next? Your insights matter, and don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to venture into the unknown with us. The shadows have lessons, and together we can learn from each tale. Let us embark on this adventure together.